You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back for another episode of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. Well, we're deep in December, that is for sure. And it is heated. I guess that's the best word I could describe. It is heated. You know, there are times when I think I know how the podcast is going to be for the week. And then there's like breaking news that changes everything. And the way you think the episode is going to go, at least for me, because, I am the host and executive producer. I think every topic except Ask Ernest is the only one in which I, require outside, guidance. But, I thought I knew how this week's episode was going to play out. And then there was a major announcement over the weekend that confirmed some thoughts I had and predictions I was going to make. And then that changed the course of the entire way I wanted to talk about that topic. And you all at this point, if you're in Philadelphia, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're a Penn alum, you damn well know what I'm talking about. And if you're around the country, you might have a clue too. And we're going to talk more about it. But I want to start off just talking about how my life has been over the past week, because I've had a lot of fun, exciting things that have happened. I mean, I've been traveling like I'm on a world tour. I feel like I'm on the book tour part 2, except it's not the book. It's like all of my friends and everything that's going on in between. So I was in Richmond, Virginia over the weekend to celebrate the official, which was already official, because when you defend your dissertation, it's official, but the more formal celebration of Dr. Parks. Yes, my bestie has, been released from the academic shackles and chambers of higher education. She's finished her dissertation, but she's been officially a graduate of VCU. My bestie, Dr. Amanda Parks. We celebrated her graduation in Richmond, Virginia. It was a great ceremony. Her parents were there. Her fiance is there. She still has a fiance. For those who was asking me, who's that? You know who that is. But yes, all of our friends came. Everyone was there. Rockwell was there. Jess was there, who also had a birthday. Because now I'm in Sagittarius season, where all of my friends are having their birthdays in rapid succession. So my lawyer's birthday was last week. Right after my lawyer's birthday, it was Jess's birthday. After Jess's birthday, it was Cindy Wynn's birthday. After Cindy Wynn's birthday, it was Lauren's birthday, who I celebrated as well this weekend. And then shortly after that, it's my girl Nina's birthday. It's like all of the Sagittarius birthday, like all back to back. Taylor Swift is in there somewhere. Yes, a lot of birthdays. I think Nina and Taylor Swift's birthday on the same day, December 13th, because that's why Taylor Swift loves the number 13. Like the way that Beyoncé likes the number 4, or the way I like the number 7, even though I wasn't born on the 7th. But anywho, yeah, I love this season. It's holiday season, it's birthday season, it's all of that, celebrations in between. So yes, so Dr. Parks is official. Myself and Mr. Johnson, we took a 6-hour train ride to get to Richmond, and then a 6-hour back, of course. Listen, I didn't know Richmond has history. Richmond has an interesting history. I did my little research. It was once the capital of the Confederacy at one point in time. There's been a debate going on about whether Virginia is the South or whether it's the East Coast, or if Maryland's the South or the East Coast. I want to say to y'all that even though it is below the Mason-Dixon line or on that border or whatever, let me be very clear. yes, there is Confederate history in Virginia, and I could see that point. However, I don't consider Virginia part of the South. I think it dips. And Maryland is definitely not a part of the South. Maryland is the East Coast. People like to play like that, but no, that's not the South. I mean, Virginia, I mean, if you're on the lower tip end of Virginia, maybe, but honestly, I consider it East Coast. I personally consider East Coast. That's just my bias. But who knows? I just feel like when I think of the South, I think of Florida, Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas. How can I forget Arkansas? Like I feel like that's that church belt. I feel like that's Texas. Texas. I think that's the South in my head. I'm thinking in my head and I'm like, oh, of course the Carolinas. You can't forget Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina. Like that's the South to me. Like that's what I'm seeing. Like that's what I'm seeing. I mean, that's the South. Virginia, that's the North, baby. That's the North. But there was some interesting conversations about that. But I feel like, yeah, they got some Confederate, but that's just to me the way to remind people that the North is still racist. But that doesn't mean that you have to be in the South, because that's what they want to do. They want to cut off. See, the East Coast folks, they want to cut off anything that they feel like is connected to racist history because they want to try to like make it like a Southern thing. I'm like, so you just find the South as just being racist? No, y'all gonna keep Virginia. The East Coast need to keep Virginia so they can remember, because at the end of the day, whether it has a Confederacy or not, I mean, if that's how you define racism, we could talk about the move bombing in Philadelphia, and that's definitely East Coast. Just saying. Um, so yes, Virginia was fun. I stayed at the Omni Hotel, which was a really nice hotel. Um, and we went out to eat. We all had a dinner the night of, and it was this really great restaurant that was in the hotel that was real chill, I must say. Richmond's a very quiet city. At least the night we were there, it's a very quiet city, but things be moving so slow. And I guess that's why people think it's the South, because I was in an Uber ride and I was like, this man is driving really slow. But then I realized, oh, these are some cobblestone ass streets. And I haven't remembered cobblestone like that since Philly, but that's only an old city where they take their time because them streets are like, giving you old 1776 vibes. But I was like, okay, well, take your time, sir. I'm not trying to, be out too late out here, because you never know. You never know. But yeah, it was a great graduation ceremony. It was so much fun. Celebrate my girl Jess. Jess came in town, and that was a vibe. She's got a birthday, and so I'm like, wow, 33. Oh my goodness, I just turned 32 like about a month and a half, and so to see us just getting there in the memories, just like wow, it's been over a decade, like over a decade of friendship. Like, we're getting close to 15 years actually since we all met in 2010. Like, damn, we getting up there. Um, Also got a chance to celebrate my fave, Lauren. She had her birthday. It was beautiful. We was in Yaden. It was a cute house party with her cousins and friends, and one of my lit brothers were there. It was a good time. I miss a good old school house party with the music and you could really blast the speakers the way you want, because she's in a house, and so I was like, wow, this is a party. Um, it was lit. And of course, I mean, just a good house party with a good caterer. Catering is, listen, I don't underestimate a party that has private catering. It's just whoever your caterer is can make the party great or they can make the party bad. I've been to some parties where the catering wasn't too good. Listen, don't try to get your cousin, so and so to do the catering. Get a company, get a brand, find those people, right? But no, it was just such a good party. It was just real, like, I don't know, like I feel like what I've noticed, I feel like the older I get, the more I feel like people throw parties that like are more chill compared to like the very flossy, glossy. And I've had those type of parties when I was younger, but like I just feel like we don't do parties in nightclubs anymore. Um, at least my generation. Like there are certain people like, well, we don't he who not be mentioned anymore, but I was gonna say Diddy, but like those all like I remember when I was younger, I felt like we tried harder to throw extremer parties than we do now. Like I don't know, the parties I go to, we're not making people have a dress code. I feel like a dress code is just almost like stop it. Like oh, everyone wear all white for my birthday. It's like get over yourself. I don't know. I think what I like now is people just kind of, at least in my friend group, the party and the gatherings are a lot more casual. They're still nice, but they're not meant to be fussy. Because I think we're at a point where we're realizing like the importance of friendships, but also what we want from a party. I feel like we get less selfish about what we want from a party, what we want from people. Like if you have really good friends, they're gonna think of you and do for you. And there's things you don't really have to ask for. Like whenever I have a party now, I don't like have to demand like you need to give me a gift. I don't do that. I just kind of just host the party, bring people, and also I must say my thoughts on birthday parties have evolved a little bit. Um, but I also think it's given my status and just given the nature of the friends I care about and things. Like I throw a party, I kind of host, I kind of create the energy, the food or whatever, get the, vibe. And I just invite people. And naturally they come with gifts and love and a good attitude. And it's a wonderful time. I feel like when I was younger, I felt like I had to, I don't know, I felt like things just felt forced. Early parties I had, like I just did the most. But now I feel like, I mean, that's socializing and growing up, I suppose. But I feel like now, like, I know who I'm inviting to my party. I know who I'm not inviting. I know what I'm, like, what I want to eat. And I want to, I want to be able to just not make things so extra. Like the days of just having 20 people and splitting a bill, that's just not happening anymore. I'm not doing it. I mean, if other people I know are doing something, I mean, sure, why not? But I'm just not going to put that on me. Um, and it's also too just being more mindful about planning a party, the party I want in advance. Like if you like me, I have a cycle with everything I do. Like I'm just a master planner. But like birthday planning for me starts. My birthday's in October, right? I start thinking about my birthday, like planning. I want to say at the end of the summer. I want to say my bestie Jamarcus's birthday is on 4th of July, but we call it 4th of Jamarcus. I will start thinking about my party like at the end of July. After his birthday, there's no major birthdays in between mine. Like none of my friends have I mean Beyonce, her birthday's around Labor Day, but outside of my friend Beyonce, I think no, like nothing is. There's no other major birthdays between Jamarcus's birthday and my friend group. I don't yeah, I don't see any like birthdays, like pressing birthdays that I've gone to a parties. So that gives me like runway. Because all of my friends' birthdays are in December, January, and fucking February. Like everybody's birthday. Like the bulk of my friends, and also April, because yeah, April birthdays too. Because my little brother's in there. All of them. So and then March is, there's only one March birthday. That's my middle brother. But like everybody else is like there is a lot of birthdays in December, January, February, and then April has a little splash of birthdays around then. And then after that, it gets a little more chill. You got 4th of Jamarcus, which is his own party. And then after that, it's October. So I start thinking about a venue around the end of July. I start calling the venue. I start figuring out my catering situation. I start drafting the list of who I want to bring. September 4th, after Labor Day, I immediately send out invitations, like immediately send it out the week of the Labor Day. Because in many cases, if you are a friend of mine, you know my birthday's in October. You've gone to my parties multiple years. So honestly, I'm not going to I'm not no shade, but I don't expect there to be a booking or you do anything unless you have told me this in advance, like way in advance, because that's just what it is. Like I know in February that I got to be mindful about how I travel in the beginning of February, even though it's been interesting lately, and we'll talk more about it in the weeks to come about the beginning of February. But anyway, in January, I know that the first half of January belongs to the Lip brothers. Two of the Lip brothers are Capricorns. My mother's a Capricorn. Dr. Parks a Capricorn. Goodness, a bunch of Capricorns around that time. And in February, husband's birthday. My good Judy Sharon, my friend Manny. It's a list of, it's a bunch of Aquariuses. So it's like you just know mentally when you gotta space stuff out. They got Valentine's Day, all that. So I always know what is given. You know, I know what it's giving. So I balance accordingly. But anywho, I say all this to say, you know, once I figure that out, catering happens. I'm able to budget accordingly to make sure that I'm having a really good time and also not feeling overwhelmed. And so when it's time to have a good time, I never feel overwhelmed or stressed or doing stuff the night before because pretty much I know what I'm doing. I think it through. And so I just encourage people, just be more intentional and think. Like, when you want to plan parties, you want to plan things. It doesn't. It's not as stressful if you actually give some time to think about this stuff of ahead of time. You know your birthday every year. You know your situation every year. Try to set time to plan. Like even now, I've made it a thing to do a birthday. I make it a thing to do certain other things, but I think this stuff through Thanksgiving. If I'm going to do a caterer, I know who I'm going to invite. I try to do it through because I see nowadays, even with the Thanksgiving, the straights are already asking people during their weddings for Thanksgiving. I be like, oh damn, people, the straights be knowing. I'm like, let me see when it comes to some of this holiday planning. Let me make sure I do that with all my party planning. I digress. But yeah, it's a lot of birthdays. It's been a lot of birthdays in December, and I love it. Restaurants I've been to. I've been to a lot of restaurants this week, and I got some little thoughts about some of them. So I went to Jersey for gas and Maine. Restaurant Alexander for brunch, which of course, finally we had like a little cute couples brunch there. Myself and Joe and Dr. Parks and Mr. Johnson, all the four of us had a lovely a brunch at Restaurant Alexander. Which, if you all listened to a couple episodes back, I was talking about how there was what I call banana pudding gate, which one of my bestie, Miss Parks, Dr. Parks, uh, she liked the pudding at the restaurant, and she was given the whole tub and the vanilla wafers, to which she shared with Joe. And he was curious about the passion to which he received it. So he wanted to find out for himself, the true Baltimore bull that he is. We went to brunch and we had a good time, but we got to see and experience the experience ourselves. And it was quite the observational but fun brunch. But brunch at Restaurant Alexander is great, and more about them in a minute. But I went to Jersey with 3/4 of Lit Brothers because Joshy's Philly is so booked and busy. He done ran himself to Miami, where everybody's at in Miami. But I guess there's an art basel this weekend. I was like, but it's all good. I'm gonna see him for a holiday party later this week. But Joshy's Philly be out here booked, y'all. Lit Brothers are having one of our. We're gonna have one of our. We're doing some restaurants together. We got a couple on our list for the week, and then also we're going to end the year with a bang, I would say. And I'll talk more about that later. But it's a lot of eating. So the three of us, it was George, Jamarcus, and myself, and of course Mr. Johnson. He drove us to Jersey. We was in Jersey at Gas and Maine. It's this restaurant that's been open for a couple of months, but it's fairly new. And Chef Dame DeMarco, they are a beast. They can cook their ass off. This is a BYOB, but the food is so, oh my goodness. This place is called Gas and Maine. It's GASS and Maine, MAIN, Gas and Maine. You've heard about it a couple of times probably, but it's in South Jersey. I highly recommend you go. It's not that far at all either. It's like a 30-minute drive. It's almost like if you're trying to go to Ardmore or something. It's not that long of a drive in my opinion. I feel like it was easy to get there than parts of Philly. I feel like it takes a longer drive for me to get to like Northwest compared to that location. So I recommend you go. Let me just start there. The food is really, really good. I mean, juicy pork, Great chicken. Oh my goodness, what they do with beef and how they sear it. It's a very good, it's New American, if that makes sense. New American, really good elevated casual food, big ass portions. Oh my God, good portions. I mean, not Philly portions and for really good dining. I was, yeah, definitely doing something for me. I also went to the opening in South Philly of this black-owned restaurant that is bacon-centric called Bacon Bacon. It's Bake apostrophe N then bacon. I did an article about it. I interviewed the owners. It's a good vibe. It's a beautiful vibe. So this restaurant used to be Devil's Den, which was around in South Philly for over a decade. There's a lot of history about that location that the new restaurant is at, but it's great. They just had a soft launch on Thursday, but their grand opening is this upcoming Thursday. Very affordable, really great food. There's something for everybody on this menu. They got vegan options. They are very bacon centric, so there's some dishes with some fun bacon bits and crumbles. But you can also recommend that you don't want bacon if you're like don't like pork. There are other options in the menu that are not centering around pork. But I will say those mussels they had with the bacon, woo, it was so good. I also liked they had a salmon dish that was really good. But everything in there, they have this pound cake with this candied bacon sauce on it. It's just wonderful. Now, for people who might be saying, this sounds familiar, that's because this used to be a food truck. And the dream was always to turn it into a brick and mortar restaurant, which they finally was able to achieve. This place is owned by two black men from Jersey originally, Justin Coleman and Calvin Anderson, who Coleman they celebrated their 39th birthday. He celebrated his 39th birthday inside of Bacon for the soft launch, which was kind of sentimental. And the restaurant is very beautiful. The bar is popping. They don't have their liquor license just yet. It's currently BYOB, but they should be getting a license very soon. But they have a mocktail menu that is fire. And I didn't even realize how some restaurants out here got some good mocktail menus. That might actually inspire me to do a list actually about mocktails in Philly. But it's a great restaurant, but it's a new black-owned restaurant. So to have one in South Philly that they actually own and they did all the repairs. They really invested a lot in getting that restaurant up to speed. It looks nothing like Devil's Den. I was gonna say Lion's Den. Devil's Den. It is dope, and they're taking reservations right now. Or you could do walk-in, actually. Check out the article I wrote about them in the link in the bio. So the link in my Twitter bio or my Instagram bio, the story's there. So check it out. I also tried this restaurant called Elmira. I went to the grand opening. This is the restaurant that is in the building where Little Pete's used to be. Well, not just Little Pete's, the whole area. They done made a brand new restaurant that is huge, big ceilings, wide. It is a huge restaurant all over that area where Little Pete's was with the parking lot and the other building. They took over all that and turned it into this Greek Mediterranean restaurant. That is pretty good. It's pretty good. I think it's from the people who also own Estia. If y'all remember Estia too, it's still around. It's on the other end near Broad. This restaurant is in Rittenhouse, right across the street from Spice Finch. For those who want to map, if it's right over there across from Spice Finch, you can't miss it. They have lots of decorations. It's elaborate. It's over the top. Oh my goodness, it's something. Food was really good. Tried some different entrees and bites and things. They have these really succulent lamb chops that the lamb chops are really big and thick, and that really stood out to me because lamb chops, I don't know, lamb chops in Philly are starting to be between great and good. Like I don't know. The lamb chops feel like they're getting small. Is it because of inflation? I don't know, but I feel like lamb chops are getting real small out here. I remember they used to be big, just like the ones that I just had at Elmira, but yes. Also went to Olorosa, which is Ted Wentz, which is Townsend, but people call him Ted. But Townsend Wentz, who owns Townsend. He also owns Almano. He also owns Townsend, Almano, and then I went to Olorosa, which he also owns. But he also is the new owner of Caribou Cafe, which is in the neighborhood. That owner just sold that property, and now he owns that, and that's a French brasserie. but he also owns that. And Townsend is a French restaurant. Oloroso is Spanish. And then there is, outside of Oloroso, it's Almeno, which is Italian. And then there's another, I feel like, restaurant he owns that everyone talks about. Because he just opened another restaurant called Almar or something of that nature. And I was trying to remember what all the restaurants are, because it's a brand. So it's a Townsend Wins restaurant group. And so the restaurants that he owns is Almeno, Oloroso, and Townsend. Okay, so those are three he owns, but he now got a new restaurant called Almar, and that one is just opened. And that's in the building that's in that building where he initially put Townsend. This is in Rittenhouse. But there was a restaurant before that called Talk, and that quickly shut down because it used to be an old art gallery, but every restaurant that's come in there has not lasted that long. I feel like the building's cursed, but there's various reasons for it. So Talk came and went. This restaurant called Talk, that was going to be this big deal, but it had a bad review, and then that changed everything. Then after that, Townsend, his other restaurant, came there, but the pandemic forced it to shut down. And then now there's Omatraire, this new restaurant that I hadn't really got a chance to try anything at, but they're an Italian seafood restaurant, and they just opened, I believe, on Friday, I believe, and they're in the building now. So we'll see what stays, but I mean, it's an interesting thing. So I went to Oloroso, loved it. It's in the neighborhood. It's right across the street from Calibu Cafe, actually. It's on 1121 Walnut Street, and they just got a really good, wood-fired tapas and bites that are really good. And honestly, if you can't get into I think people can get into Amada just fine. But if you're tired of like Amada or places like that where you just only go there for tapas, Spanish tapas, or you miss Tinto, Oloroso is a great alternative option, people. One of the things that I've done lately, and I don't necessarily say anything I write because it is a little weird, but when there's a time where I crave a particular, dish or food, and my favorite quote unquote version of the food, or what I think is my favorite version, is not available, or the reservations are too hard, I make up for it by going to other restaurants that provide that same feel or energy. I don't want to call out any particular restaurants, but I promise you that there's always an alternative that may be more affordable or just more accessible, Just saying. There's great alternatives out here. You do not have to always just go to one place for one thing. And Philly tries to make you think that, though. Like, they'll have you thinking, oh, the only way I can get good fried chicken is if I go to this restaurant. Nah, there's options, people. That's why I make lists where I'm like, 15 great places to get fried chicken or blah, 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 because I want you to have options. So just consider that. But I also want to say this, and I'm going to say this. I'm not going to name names because I'm a classy John sometimes. But what I want to say here is that I'm noticing that there are certain restaurants, and no shade, but there are certain restaurants that I've noticed that will invite me to an event, but the event will not have any food. Now, what I mean by that is, if you're a restaurant and you're having an opening and you're inviting me to come to cover, and your restaurant's not open officially, but you want me to go to the restaurant, and then you're looking at me as if you want me to write about the food, it's a little hard to talk about the food itself if I don't have the actual opportunity to try the food. I've noticed that there are some restaurants out here that will invite people, media, and listen, if you want to invite influencers, and there's no shade to influencers, I have some friends that are influencers. It's different for them because they're, they'll take pictures, but I know some of y'all, because y'all have asked me, y'all hit me up and y'all look at, Instagram reels or videos of people talking about certain food, and you'll be like, well, I'm confused. Why is it no meal? Why is it just, these appetizers? Let me tell you, because that's all those restaurants, some of these restaurants be serving. They don't actually serve any major dishes or food sometimes. And the influencers will do whatever to make content, and that's their prerogative. But I'm not an influencer, baby. I'm influential, but I'm not an influencer. I'm a writer. I'm a journalist. I have to actually, I can't take pictures of appetizers and be like, oh, the food at this restaurant is great. Like, if I tell you all that a restaurant I've been to had good food, I tried entree dishes. I tried a variety of the food. I did not just have a bite and go. Let's be very clear. Some of your faves, no shade, but some of the influencers that y'all follow, they can't say the same. But everybody has their own priorities, and not all of those priorities are editorial. Some of them are monetary priorities for them. That everybody's most different. But as a journalist, my priority is editorial, which means that my focus is to get the information to be able to give it to you all so you can make your own informed decisions. So, to the restaurant folks that listen to my podcast, don't invite me somewhere where it's just going to be a bunch of wine and cocktails and there's no food. I just don't know. That's not my cup. That's not, there's been this interesting thing I've noticed in the industry lately where when there are quote unquote media events, they're including the influencers and journalists, even though we do things very differently. Like influencers that go to these events, it's almost like they're expected to produce content. They're directed to post this many pictures or do video or do blah, blah, blah. Journalists, you ain't my editor. You ain't my general manager. You ain't my boss. You don't tell me. I'm my own boss, so no one's telling me to do anything. But like in the real rap, there's this expectation. Now, for a while, people will say, oh, well, why is this person not doing this? And I'm like, listen, if I choose to post pictures, y'all, I want to be real with you all that if I choose to post pictures, that's because I wanted to. And I've learned over the years that I don't have to post every restaurant or everything, especially if I didn't have a full-fledged meal or did not feel like I had enough information to promote, because I know the power of my platform. And so I recognize that if I post something or write about a topic or share, that it's going to create conversation or in some cases debate. Listen, we learned that this week, didn't we now? But that is, when you have a platform, then you're thoughtful. You should be thoughtful about how you present your information and how you show up. That's just my whole thing. And because now I'm influential in Philadelphia's food and dining scene, food and drink scene, I recognize that when I post something, it creates an experience. It creates a moment. Like the bacon piece that I did, and I shout those brothers out. They told me like, yo, it's the buzz is real, right? Folks are going, people are talking. Like, I knew it was going to make an impact, right? That's what I know, right? I know that when I posted this hoagie a couple of months ago, that you remember that chicken Caesar hoagie? Oh my God, so good, right? That chicken Caesar hoagie, there are people who drive all the way down to the Northeast to get it. Or the North, I'm sorry, North Philly, I suppose, to get it. They go down north to get that damn sandwich. That's the power. So if I post something, I don't want any of you all telling me, oh, I went to the restaurant and it was not good. I didn't like this, I like that. Oh, this was overrated. What did you get off the menu that you liked? And all I'm telling you is about a couple of little small bites I had. That's not sufficient for me. But again, everybody has different priorities in this quote unquote media space, right? And people are blurring the lines in the industry around that. But I just want y'all to know that I'm always going to treat it as a journalism experience, regardless of, everybody else's vibe. And I think that's why a lot of people do follow me, because they know that I'm going to be fair. Now, my rule is if I don't like the restaurant, I'm not going to post it. And sometimes I do like a restaurant, but I also want to go back again because sometimes you can go to an event or something and it might be lights, camera, action, but you need to do that second visit, that's spin the block a little bit and come back and try it and then let people know. So I do that. I do. There is a process. There is a method to my madness, surprisingly, when it comes to restaurants. And I think people are finding out because there are some folks that certain people who represent these restaurants, they say, oh, I know she didn't post. And I'm like, do I want to tell you that it wasn't that good? Or do I want to tell you that, hey, it was just more like a glorified happy hour. Like, there was nothing for me to post. Like, there are things, that, those conversations, you got to just keep it real, right? At least I do. But speaking of eating and food, I had the pleasure this week of announcing the 2023 Eater Awards, which has also been quite the week of hot debate and topic. But it wasn't the only thing debating and hot topic, as you all know. So I did my list, 5 incredible winners that I just felt like, being the editor, I'm super excited that they're being honored. So my best new restaurant of 2023 for the Eater Awards was Malu, which, I couldn't stop talking about when I first tried them back in May. Mr. Johnson and I had a cute little date night. We saw The Little Mermaid, the opening weekend, of course, to support our girl, Halle Bailey. And, it was a good time. Went there, loved it, fell in love with it. Other folks that I knew that I recommended, when everybody told me they wanted to go to this restaurant and have this experience, I recommended this place. And also everyone across the country, right? They're one of the best new restaurants in America right now. And they're just great. So yeah, they're just wonderful. So this is Chef Alex Kemp, but also his wife, Amanda Schulman, who I went to Penn with. Now, Alex Kemp and Amanda Schulman, they're together. But for those who don't know about Malu, Malu is a French Canadian restaurant, pretty much. Very good food. It's maximalist to the max. I mean, oysters, seafood. It's very French, very fun. Steak frites, all the good things. But if you remember Amanda Schulman, she owns Her Supper Club, which is also a great restaurant in Philly in a rented house. So they're like dynamic power couple in the food scene. My best new bar is Vinyl, and emphasis on the word new bar, because a lot of the list is based on restaurants that are new and things that are new. Vinyl is just dope. It's in Rittenhouse, or I would say more Center City. It's where the old Applebee's used to be, um, right there, and it's brought a lot of electricity to that area because that area, it's right across the street from Ann Pizza over there, and across the street from Max Brennan, that chocolate factory place that was past its prime. So I think vinyl is a great alternative to that scene. I mean, so many other things have been closing. It's been a lot going on over there in Rittenhouse, but I think vinyl's dope. I mean, John Legend, Kingsley, American Salvage. Salvage has performed there. They got some really great cocktails. And it's the type of bar that is, you want to be cute and dressy. It's real nice. It's real fun and lively. It's something different. And so I really think, yeah, they deserve a lot of accolades, for sure. Best new dish is the Jim's West cheesesteak, the most controversial cheesesteak in Philly right now. I love it. I love the story. I love what it represents. Everything about this just was like, this is it. This is a great piece of Philly. And also West Philly stand up, Um, I know it was a very controversial choice because people were like a cheesesteak, but this is not any cheesesteak. This cheesesteak is there's so much to this, and it's a special dish. And I just felt like this deserved recognition, because it really is good. It's actually has become my favorite cheesesteak, for sure. I used to like Delisandro's, but when I heard that they sold Delisandro's to other owners, the quality of the food, I feel like the type of swagger that cheesesteak used to have, it's missing the swag points for me. So Delisandro's is not my favorite anymore. But also, like, there's the Max's crew. Y'all, can we be honest about Max's cheesesteak? I mean, it's not horrible, let me be clear. but it's not. It's overrated. It's overrated, and I'm going to say that only on my podcast. But I think the Max's cheesesteak at this point is overrated. Okay, it's a bunch of greasy slop. I mean, I won't say slop. Okay, that's too much. But it is a little. It is a little greasy. Very, 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 very greasy. And I don't know. I just feel like people just want to have a counter to, you know, what's it, Geno's and Pat's. Well, yes, it's better than Geno's and Pat's, but that's like saying you're better than hell. Like anything's better than 6 feet under. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it's there's just been a lot of hype around Max's, and I feel like ever since the Rocky reboots, everybody's been really acting like Max is really that girl. I don't see it, but I'm gonna let y'all be great. Best collaboration went to Lucky Well Incubator. This was definitely an all-time highlight of my year. For those who remember that dinner, it was like that was our first actual, dinner. It was Dr. Parks, Joe, myself, and Mr. Johnson. We did like a little cute little couples day, and we went and tried the Lucky Well Incubator over in Spring Garden. Highly recommend this place. Oh my God, Chad Rosenthal is incredible. And I know that when Amanda saw this, she probably was like, yep, because we was mesmerized. We were very impressed with everything we ate there. And I've always wanted to go back, but my appetite, I'd be like, oh, if I'm going, I got to make some room because we tried like 4 different types of cuisine. There is this place is just incredible. It is really, really great. I really recommend it. It's on 10th and Spring Garden. It's called the Lucky Well Incubator. Support these chefs. It's something really cool about it. It's a great collab, right? So you have 4 different types of cuisines. Right now the cuisine is they got these Navajo tacos, they got barbecue, they got street style Vietnamese food, which that Vietnamese food was top tier. Okay, they had Italian, and not just any type of. It was a very fun, cozy Italian. But you could try all these different types of entrees from these different chefs that are in residency. These are up and coming chefs that don't have their own brick and mortars, but they're popular chefs from other restaurants across Philly. But they stay and do this program, and it's like they basically cook these dishes they like, perfect their dishes. They're getting money and support, and it helps them build their funding up. One, to just build their visibility, because now I know chefs like Marcos Empinoza. I know Chef Rob Miskell. I know who Scott Sumsky is. I know who Jacob Trent is. Like, I know who these chefs are in their own way, because a lot of them are already at other restaurants, but too often we're so busy into the restaurant itself. A lot of y'all don't take the time to figure out who that chef is or whatnot. But this residency, this program, this incubator is so dope. And I believe they're gonna have a new class coming up next year. So it's gonna keep evolving in the food, but it's so good. I mean, it's just dope. And it's something that is a byproduct of the pandemic that just continues to impress. So I just love them. And my chef of the year, my big one. This is the big one right here. Chef of the year. Who is it? Da 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 da. Montana Houston of Restaurant Alexander. Listen, first of all, he's 27. Like, what? And he is. And I want to also say that we can only do one chef of the year, but I think his chef de cuisine, Jameer Wimberly Cole, is just as equally deserving. He's 22. I think, or maybe between 3 now. But that duo, I mean, come on. It's not easy to make yourself a name for yourself as a Black young chef in Philly. But to do it in Rittenhouse Square and be able to defy those obstacles and do something so different with a different type of cuisine, I just, like, it's so good. It's so good. I know I speak the praises, but I was just like, oh my goodness. Like when Monique is in the church, like, you're just taking it, babe. You're just taking it. They're taking it. They're just taking it. They took it. I mean, chef of the year. Cannot talk about them enough. And just about the story. And I think that's what I've learned this year in this role as a food editor. Who would have, imagined, right? I still pinch myself every day because of how fun it is. But I think what I've learned more is that my interest in food is not just rooted in the food alone, but the stories behind it, the other meaning of it. And when I wrote a piece that came out for Eater, that was the national site, and it was a personal essay called Soul Food does not need saving. And it's also linked in bio. Check it out if you can. But it's called Soul Food Does Not Need Saving. And I talked about basically how I thought that my family should upgrade our family traditional Southern holiday feast. Not a good idea. But I was thinking to myself, like, oh, maybe we should upgrade our food. Maybe we should do this. And I realized like that wasn't the reason. And I talked about, a lot of my internalized anti-blackness that was shaped by pop culture, that my perceptions of black food and soul food and these recipes were like, oh, they were inherently unhealthy and not good for you, and we should reduce it. But then I was thinking about this, and I don't want to tell the story all the way out. It's a personal essay. This is one of my more vulnerable pieces because I really talk about a lot of family history and how all of that. And so I really recommend you all take the time to read it. I know there was a lot of news I did this week, and I did feel like I got a chance to really expand upon this piece, and I'll probably talk more about it actually in the next episode or so, but I want y'all to read it. It's called Soul Food Does Not Need Saving, and it is in my link in bio, and it's an eater. But I've worked for weeks on the piece and really, fleshed out how I wanted to talk about it. And it's a series called The Feast We Remember from Eater, which they reached out to different writers from various backgrounds to share their holiday experiences, whether it's Chinese food, Hanukkah, different recipes. But it's like personal essays that talk about that. And so I really poured myself into this piece, and I really liked how it turned out. But basically, I get into how food culture, at least for Black people, we often deal with the burden of the anti-Blackness and how our food is discussed in mainstream media, and how that even shapes educated Black people's desires to sometimes, long story short, I was, in, the movie Soul Food. What character do y'all think I was? Because I definitely wasn't Faith. I definitely wasn't Faith. I was Terry Joseph. I'm the Terry Joseph of my family. I am convinced 100%. That's my character. I'm not the bird. I'm not Miles. Definitely not Miles. I'm not Maxine, which I don't mind her. I am the Terry Joseph of my family. If you watch the movie Soul Food, you know who that character is. It's Vanessa Williams' character, but you have to know why. Except I didn't have a situation where I was beating Miles' ass up for messing around with Faith, because ain't no Faith in my family fucking anybody's man. But Terry Joseph's persona and character, when I first watched the movie, they framed her as the villain back in the 90s. The movie came out in 97. It's a classic. I highly recommend you watch it. They have it on Amazon Prime Video for only $3.79 apparently. But it's a great film. I thought that they framed her as the villain. But as you get older, you recognize, it's been over 25 years now. Goodness, where did time go? But 25 years later, and look, all these actors are still around. Vivica A. Fox, Lena Long, Mekhi Phifer, Vanessa Williams, they're still around. But I really have a level where we really realize she was the real hero of the story, next to the young boy who loved his grandmother to death. But she was the real hero of the story, but we always thought she was the villain. But she just had a lot of pressure. And anybody can relate to her character. At least the person in the family that's keeping things together. But yes, I really, 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 really love that piece and highly recommend people read it. Let me see. Ooh, my sparkling water is coming through. So another great piece of news. I am a part of the WGA. Okay, baby, we're union strong. The news came out earlier over the weekend. I'm super excited about this news. I've never been a part of a union before. So I'm super hype about it, because I'm like, oh yeah, I get to be a part of a union. We're on strike. We're not on strike. Let me be clear. And going on strike requires a lot of decision making. But I'm an official, annual dues paying member of the Writers Guild of America East. Now, I have a contract with Vox Media, of course, and so that made me eligible to be a part of this esteemed labor union that represents thousands of members like myself who write content for motion pictures, television, news, and online media. And they do a lot of work, okay? This is an institution that negotiates and administers contracts that protect the creative and economic rights of members, right? They do programs and seminars and events. They do a lot of things on interest to writers, and they present writers' views to various bodies of government, which is a big deal. So I'm looking forward to connecting with them. If you know people that's a part of WGA of the East, like for real, like holla at me. Cause I'm super excited. And they just recently, as you all know, had a they recently had a what is that? They had a strike, and the strike was major. But now the contract has been around, and I'm excited to see the results. I'm excited to see the results, and excited to experience the contract and see what it's giving. I mean, I'm excited. There's a lot. But here we are. Other things before I get into some of these hot topics. I know y'all ready. Y'all getting real excited. I am too, because there's some things going on. I got bifocals now. So I have glasses, Prada frames, which I didn't realize I was being extra fancy, but I really was like, if I'm going to wear them, I'm going to wear them. So I went to the eye doctor. So this is the end of the year. So as you can imagine, I'm doing I did all my doctor checkups, and the final one was the eye doctor, which, I get them checked every other year. I do everything. I get all my vaccinations. I get all of everything I need to do. So that's why when y'all saw I had got the earwax out last week, I also had to schedule for the eye doctor. So my vision is pretty decent. I mean, 2020 for the most part. But the doctor still recommended that I would wear shades when I'm doing any major work on my laptop. So there was I feel like what they call it, a stigma or something like that they say, that's like on my eyes. And so in some cases it doesn't, like when I am like close up, it's coming from the blue light from laptops and cell phones. So what was recommended is that when I'm ever staying late night on this computer writing these bomb ass articles, that's the time I should really, lean into wearing my glasses. I can wear them anytime for the most part. Personally, I feel like I know when I need them, and I prefer them when I'm actually on my laptop writing my articles and things like that. But if I'm just like at a restaurant, or I'm just, kind of just walking down the street, whatever, I don't need them in that kind of way. My vision is pretty solid. I do feel like I agree with her with the long screen time. I start to squint my eyes at a certain period of time because I'm just been on the computer for long. And I didn't realize, like, oh snap, that's actually, you can use, glasses can aid in that. Who would have known? But, now I love them. These lenses are dope. I have, like, the first couple of days I was wearing them more because I just wanted to get adjusted to my eyes. And now I feel like I can inadvertently wear them, take them off, and still be able to navigate without, because at first I was worried, like, okay, if I start wearing these glasses, am I going to be so codependent on them that now I can't see anything moving forward? Not the case. But when I'm writing on my laptop and at night, these shades, the way they work, they are definitely a huge improvement. And I also don't have any type of small, slight migraines or tiredness, because apparently if you're consistently having like headaches, or I didn't have like headaches, but like migraines, or you just feel over tired, a lot of times it's caused because you're using your eyes a lot to see, and that's like creating a lot of additional physical distress and things. I will say that since I've been using these glasses, I have had less of that. And so that has been an improvement. But who would have known? Go to your eye doctors, people. I told y'all last week, primary care for your ears. Go to your eye doctor if you haven't. Maybe you might need glasses, or maybe need them casual like I do. Maybe you need them for reading, But it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt, right? So lastly, the tea. Before I get into the other tea nationally. So this is a story called because I got to tell this a certain way. And I can't name names because I'm not going to name this person's name. But there are going to be some people that's going to listen to this podcast and probably take a guess who they think it is. That's fine. I don't care, but I'm not going to tell you. Um, so there was a girl that I used to be friends with. I wouldn't say girl. She's a woman. But, she was one of the girls. But not one of the girls. She's straight. But anywho, we was in the industry. We used to be friends. We're not friends anymore. We're not. It could be very obvious because at one point in time, I think because people saw us a lot together, if they've noticed that for the past year, this person hasn't been on any pictures, I haven't been on any of their pictures. We're not friends. I'm big on loyalty. I'm just keeping it 100. I'm big on loyalty. Loyalty is, if you don't have loyalty in a friendship, then you don't have a friendship. Because I think trusting a person, like, look, people make mistakes, people deserve grace, but there's also a thing called trust. And if I don't trust you, then I can't, there's just no friendship at that point. It's interesting because you're like to yourself, you go from a person speaking at your wedding to a person that you don't want to even speak to. This year, and I'll talk about it in the finale of the show, which is in a couple of episodes down, but I think this year, the big thing for me is, and then I listen to my Aunt Patty, Miss Patty Jackson, is that we really do need to bring back the word associates, or, making it clear what friends are and associates are. In this situation, though, we were friends, but they were acting like an associate in a way where they flip-flopped how they wanted to show up. And it was interesting. Like, when there were good times, they were there for the good times. But when things got tough, they got funny. And I think as I've gotten older, I begin to recognize, okay, who's the friends and who's the foes. And this is the show where anything goes, as you all know. That shit is real. But nonetheless, this person. So I got invited. Okay, let me back this up some more. A couple of weeks ago, I heard a friend of mine, a guy I'm really cool with, he reached out to me. He was like, "Hey, did you hear about this party?" And I had not heard about it, right? It was the Black Star Luminary Awards. And this is the first time they've ever had it. Never heard of it. I've heard the Black Star Film Festival, but I never heard about this awards. I didn't know anything, right? So they hit me up like, yo, they sent it to me, and I was like, "Ooh, this looks cool." I didn't even know about it, right? And so they were like, "Oh, wow, I'm surprised because I looked at the host committee." Well, first I looked at the event. First of all, them tickets were like $500, $25,000 tables. It was boilers, okay? It was a boilers gala. It was the W Hotel and a little event space, yo. It was glam, okay? So I'm thinking to myself, like, why haven't I heard about this? And then I looked at who was on the host committee, and this person was one of the co-chairs. So I was like, this explains a lot. So I was contemplating going, and I was like, I'm not going to go. Could I buy a ticket? I could. But honestly, this person, I know how these events go. They do give tickets to people. They do recommend tastemakers. And I saw that Telfar Clemens was being honored. And I was like, wait, Telfar is coming to Philly? The Black queer designer? My fashion icon? And no one, well, this person made me know about it, but the whole rest of the hood wasn't going to let me know that father was in town. Like, I don't understand. But I was feeling some type of way. And I said, when I saw who was on the host committee and who was actually the chair of it, co-chair of it, I said, oh, this person's gatekeeping me out. They don't want me to come here. They hating. And they know how much I like Telfar. But again, when you're not friends with a person anymore, I guess they was like, who gives a fuck? So it was what it was. So I heard about it, but I was like, you know what? I'm not going to force it. But something in my soul told me I'm going to be here. It was meant for me to be there. I didn't know how. I wasn't in the streets looking, But I just was like, this ain't right. So literally about 4 days before the event, it was last Monday, the event, someone that I really admire a lot, another woman I admire a lot, was like, "Hey, are you going to this?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." I kind of was like, I don't know. I'm free on Monday." They're like, "How can you should be here? You should be here." And like, I hear people tell me I should be somewhere, and they're not like actually. So I was kind of like, "Yeah." In my head, I was like, "Yeah, I know I should be here, but like, how am I gonna get there?" They was like, "Oh, if you can come, we got a table." So they got a table, and they wanted me to be on the guest list, and they put me on the guest list, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is happening." So I was VIP. I got there and got to meet Telfar Clemens, the designer, the icon, whose bags I've been wearing and being an ambassador for so long. Got to meet him. He's a full of life. And also a part of that committee was the legendary Tarana Burke, the creator of hashtag Me Too, the Me Too movement. She's the leader. She's inspired a lot of my writing over the years and really helped me understand rape culture and these issues on a level that I never would have imagined. She was there. Got to take a picture with her and meet her finally in person. And, that co-chair who was there, listen, I'll just say it like this. She was there and she didn't say anything to me. And she was with her little raggedy boy. She was with her little boyfriend. And, I think to myself in these times, the song Karma by Taylor Swift, my most played song of the year, by the way. I'll tell you my list of songs and you'll be surprised about who made it and who didn't. But, yeah, it was definitely a very interesting observation. And I always tell people that's what's for you, what's for you. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And no one can stop you from what is yours. I think that's the most important thing. Haters will try to be gatekeepers and barriers. But there will always be, if there's a will, there's a way. And that's something that I have just come to accept. That like, even when I think that I know how things are going to play out, there's always an element of surprise that can be joyful. And in this situation in particular, I didn't know how I was going to get in there. I wanted to, but then at the same time, I wasn't going to force it. But just somebody thinking of me in ways that you sometimes don't expect people to. People will show up and show that love in ways that is just on time. So to the people who was behind the scenes that made this happen, thank you. And to that co-chair, ex-friend hater, see you again see you again. Another one. So yeah, that was my life for the past week. Next to grading papers, and giving final grades, my goodness. Because Professor Owens, even though Professor Ernest is like no longer teaching this for the rest of the semester, it's now me putting grades in. So I'm just making it happen. So here's the hot news that's going on. Trump is testifying in New York court. That's what it's supposed to be happening. It's on Monday, as you all know. He's scheduled to testify in a New York court. Now, this is for the trial related to alleged defrauding lenders. I don't even know. Trump's been in trouble so much with the trial. It's funny because we just don't care. It's so many other juicy things happening that the Trump trial doesn't feel exciting. I mean, I told y'all this a while back, but I just feel like he is kind of falling into obscurity. He's still the presidential frontrunner for president, but like, I feel like to a certain degree, the media just really wants us to care more than we do. I mean, I think we're having chronic Trump fatigue. Now that he's no longer the president, a lot of that day-to-day, bullshit we experience from him, we're just over it. And I know people think Trump could still win. And I guess there is a possibility. But he's just not the one. I mean, these criminal investigations, even if people want to act like they don't give a fuck, it's just like, come on. How do you make a case? How does Republicans make a case about political corruption when literally their front runner is like in all these fucking criminal lawsuits? Like, I don't care. You can say it's a witch hunt. You can say whatever the fuck you want, but this shit is just out of control. Especially given the fact that you got George Santos out here with all these indictments, and y'all was quick to throw his ass up out of Congress, but y'all not trying to throw Trump out. Oh, okay. Like, it's just it's not making any sense. It's just not. And I just need journalists and out there in DC to just call a thing and stop treating this shit like it's normal. But I digress. Speaking of criminal, Hunter Biden, baby. Okay, Biden's problem child now faces 9 new criminal charges. Now, I must say, a lot of this shit is connected to taxes. And, again, I'm trying not to be that person, but if we're talking about a witch hunt, I just kind of feel like, why do we give a fuck about Hunter Biden like this? Look, the boy had problems before his father was the president. When he was the vice president's son, okay, before he was the president's son, there was stories, there were things. We knew things, we heard things. I'm just trying to figure out, why do we keep hearing about it to this level? And it's like, it's almost like they're trying to equivocate Biden, Joe Biden with Trump, as if, the Republicans will go, well, Biden's son got criminal charges. And you know what? There's allegations and speculations about Trump's kids too. And what? Like, what we doing? Like, no matter how you do it, from top to bottom, Trump's situation is a hotter mess. And also, I don't understand, it's not Joe Biden on trial, it's his son. And it's not anything that's like connected to Biden at the White House. So again, I just feel like all that shit is performative. It does to me feel a little targeted. Look, if Biden was skipping out, if Hunter was skipping on his taxes, whatever, look, do what you do. But like, the fact that this is given some level of equivalency to Trump's trial is just really frustrating. So that's my thoughts on it. We'll see what happens, but come on. The GOP debate, let me tell y'all right now, that shit was unhinged. You got Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, Ron DeSantis, and Viket Ramaswamy going in on each other. This is the thing I'm going to say about that, though, about this unlikely scenario. Nikki Haley is building up momentum, which is what we predicted here at Ernestly Speaking for several weeks. But I say all to say that it looks like Trump is still the front runner to so many people, which, again, I can also see. But I don't know where Chris Christie is on any of this. And I really don't know what Ron DeSantis is still doing in the race. I don't know where Chris Christie's at. Chris Christie should just drop out the race. I do enjoy him at the debate, trying to get people together. He seems to be a voice of reason at times. But I just don't feel like we want Chris Christie, and he needs to accept that. He needs to drop out. Nikki Haley is putting a run for her money, though. She is coming strong. And I feel like the fact that she experienced a lot of attacks from the other debaters or the other candidates shows that they see her as that rising front runner and an alternative. But let me tell you, though, like Ron DeSantis, I just feel like it's just dry. I just think everybody's tired of him. He does not have any charisma. And it shows, and he's not going to be able to stand up to Trump. I mean, he was Trump's biggest cheerleader. So I don't know if how much I'm buying into that, to be honest. But anywho, there's the other issue that came up that I'm also thinking about too, is Ramaswamy. This guy. He's young as hell, for starters. He's in his late 30s. I think he's a hack, in my opinion. I think he's a hack. I don't think he is serious about running for president. I think, if anything, he wants to be Trump's cheerleader. I think he wants to be Trump's cheerleader. I think he wants to be Trump's VP pick. I thought it was Nikki Haley, but I was wrong. It's not Nikki. It's him. So I would say, I would definitely say it was him, for sure. Just keeping your eye out. But I definitely think it will be him who wants to go for this situation. I think it's him who's shooting his shot, trying to make a mark here. That's my prediction. Don't be surprised if he wants to be the VP pick for sure. Other things going on. George Santos, child. Now, see, I wrote this piece for the Daily Beast. I've been doing a lot of writing for them. I wrote 2 pieces for them this week. I love the Daily Beast. Those are my people. Wrote this piece for them talking about George Santos. Now, you all know at this point, this man has been expelled from Congress. He's out of there. But now he's using this opportunity to cash in. He's been, talking about cameos on certain shows. He's been making money off of a thing called Cameo, where basically people send him things to read. It's just, so Cameo is like the celebrity app or whatever, where you can pay people, famous people that are down with it. You can pay them a certain amount. I mean, it could be $200, whatever it is, and they will make a personalized video for you that you could give to your friends or give to whatever. And so basically these actors, or celebrities, who participate in this, they make some quick coin. So there's little things like, oh, my friends are big fans of, but you gotta be a big name. Cause who's gonna want a message from, okay, I'm not gonna throw shots, but you want like somebody like Kerry Washington. Kerry Washington should do Cameo. Like there's people that would love Kerry Washington to do a video for them. Or I'm thinking of somebody like, oh my goodness, Jackie. Okay, Jackie, the legendary Emmy Award winning Jackie. Like if she did a video, I would probably pay for a cameo video of her telling me happy birthday, telling my friends hey or something, right? Like it's a certain group of people. Clearly Oprah, right? But it can't just be anybody. Like I'm trying to figure out who would be the random person. Like, oh, I'll give an example. Like nobody wants a video from okay, this might be I'm trying I'm trying to think who would no one want a video like a cameo from. Like like does anybody want a cameo from Rita Ora? Like I don't think anybody would pay for a cameo for Rita Ora. Like no one would say, oh, I want Rita Ora to do, my video cam. Just thinking out loud. Like I don't know. I don't think Rita Ora would be like a person someone would be running to pay money for her to do a happy birthday wish to. Like someone would pay Eddie Murphy to for sure. But or Tyra Banks. There's some Tyra Banks fans still out there. But I don't know. I just feel like these are more iconic figures. Like Shirley Ralph would be a hit on something like Cameo. But anyway, George Santos is on there. They pay him, I forget how much he charges. I don't know if his prices went up, but you pay him some money and he will do these videos. Now, I personally think this is giving grifty behavior, in my opinion. It's giving grift. Like, this man has legal fees, and he's got lawsuits, and he's got indictments, federal indictments, to which he can spend some serious time behind bars if convicted. There's a possibility. I just don't understand why people are giving this man money and he's doing these videos making a mockery of the entire situation. John Fetterman, U.S. Senator John Fetterman, who has really been showing his ass lately. I must say, I have been very disappointed in a lot of Senator Fetterman's actions. And I'm not going to get all into everything, but there's just been a lot of just tone-deaf responses and behavior during this entire Israel-Hamas war. Now, I'm not talking about his politics, but I'm talking about the ways in which he's expressed them on social media. There was a meme that he posted that just really was offensive, and he actually took it down and acknowledged that, it was misleading, and it was like the situation, the meme created more questions and confusion than what he intended, and took it down. But it was because a lot of people was like, yo, this is kind of fucked up. And I don't want to get into everything that he had said directly on there, because there are people who they will not understand that I'm critiquing the actual way in which he did it rather than actual politics. And we're at this time where I'm going to talk more about this on later in this episode, but we're in an interesting time. And this book, The Case for Cancel Culture, written by yours truly, spoke of all of this. And I called it. And I'm just going to say that. A lot of y'all read the book, and a lot of y'all have been messaging me about how I feel about all that's been going on. And I have a lot of thoughts. So we'll save them. But anyway, yeah, Fetterman. So in this recent antic Fetterman just did, he basically paid George Santos through Cameo to make a mockery video out of Senator Menendez, that disgraced Democratic senator in New Jersey, who has a lot of other has had some indictments lately, and he's been calling for his resignation. Fetterman has, and so he used the cameo of George Santos basically mocking him for the video. And there was other people who've done it as well. Honestly, I just feel like, why do we keep celebrating? Like, how come when non-black politicians get hit with indictments or any type of criminal investigations, we treat them like the scum of the earth? But people like Trump and George Santos, folks out here can laugh about it or whatnot. Now, Trump's situation has gotten elevated, so I will say a lot of the laughing has kind of went away. But even when Trump was on his bigotry and people was patting him on the head, like that shit was just fun to talk to his, rub his toupee. Not Jimmy Kimmel. It was the other one. I can't keep up with these guys. Jimmy Fallon, all the Jimmys. Jimmy Fallon did it. These types of the normalization of this type of behavior and disgrace, to me, is just, yeah. Like, George Santos is a liar, and people are out here on social media playing the game because he's trying to now rebrand himself, and you know what's going to come next: a book deal, a documentary where he's going to still be full of shit and lie. I'm over it. I'm just not okay with the idea that people are selling it, right? A little corny for me. So, as far as the mayoral intergovernmental committee goes, listen, Mayor-elect Sherelle Parker, she's out here, the mayoral intergovernmental committee. Like, last week talked about her other committees, her transition committee or teams. Now she has an intergovernmental committee, which I think is kind of cool. Basically, she, recognizes, and this is, again, only a woman who has been in the state legislation and city council, now in the mayor's office, can now put all three together, because we always hear in Philadelphia, like, why are certain laws on gun violence not being addressed? Well, a lot of those issues involve Harrisburg, and a lot of issues that involve Philadelphians is involving state politics. A lot of these state reps and state senators walk around like all they can do is give out free turkeys and jackets and shit. Nah, y'all actually got real power, influence, and y'all got to stop throwing city council under the bus and act like only Philadelphia deals with it. There is some changes, and I think this intergovernmental committee, the plan, I believe, is to streamline all of the issues within the city and understanding and striking that balance between what's happening in the city and how the state can respond and vice versa. And understand the checks and balances of having all these people at the table where they can all say, look, these are issues happening in my district or my whatever. And then they can say, okay, well, here's what my office can do. And everybody figuring out exactly what they should be doing. This has never happened before in Philadelphia political history. I think it's a good move. But at the end of the day, okay, y'all, I'm a little fatigued with all of these damn committees. Who the fuck is going to be on the cabinet? Because you can have all of these great ideas, but who is going to actually be these deputy mayors and these top tier, cabinet members? Because that's going to tell me a lot. The next managing director of Philadelphia is going to tell me what direction the city is going to go. Like, you can have all of these great plans and programs, but if you don't have great administrators of them, right, those who facilitate, those who, intervene, or conveners of these programs, it's going to flop. So I'm really interested in seeing where that's going to go. Who are going to be on these cabinets? So as of right now, sources have told me close by that it's going to be a lot of, with these cabinets, there's going to be a lot of conversations and planning and, what did they say? How did they describe it? There's a lot of interviews that are already happening right now in the city, private locations, this, that, and the third, vetting and all that. So we'll see. This upcoming Thursday, City Council is about to get real. The season finale of Philadelphia City Council Live is going to be this Thursday, December 14th. So if you love listening to me on WRD Radio, 96.1, 900 AM, Black Talk Media, you will hear me on air January 2nd at around 10 a.m. at the Met, because that will be the inauguration for our 100th mayor and our also new class of city council. So I will be back on air then, but this is the last city council session of 2023, this upcoming Thursday. And this is a big deal because Daryl Clark this is his last city council session as council president. You know, we're going to have a new council president next year. It's going to be Kenyatta Johnson. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Yay. Yay. So yes, Gerald Clark is no longer going to be city council president after 3 consecutive terms in the role, which is about 12 years. He is going to be, stepping down. This is his swan song. So I know there's going to be a lot. And also there's going to be Sharon Vaughn, who also is going to not be coming back. Of course, she ran for re-election. And look, she did that because now she's got her pension, and for the rest of her life, she's going to be getting her city council salary in full, 100% of it. After 35 years of working in city council, working for the city, her pension now allows her to get 100% of her city council salary for the rest of her life. So that 6-figure salary that she has right now, she's going to get that for the rest of her life as a quote-unquote retiree. But what's even interesting is that she's actually going to go work for Senator Sharif Street. I had an exclusive interview with her after last Thursday City Council, and she said she's actually going to get on the state pension because now she's eligible. She's going to work for Senator Sharif Street. She's going to be Madam Chairwoman, or Madam Chair, working alongside of him on issues pertaining to statewide issues. Because, Senator Sharif Street is also the chair of the Democratic State Committee. So he's over the state party, which is a pretty big damn deal. She's going to be, Sharon Vaughn's going to be working under him now. And so that will make her now eligible to get state pension. So she can actually up her pay and get 2 pensions and get 2 checks. Listen, she's standing on business. She's standing on business. I'm going to leave it at that. Over the weekend, Andre Carroll announced that he's running for state rep for re-election. He's going to run for it again. He hasn't won before, but he's running. And that's in the Germantown district. For those who live in Germantown, Northwest, he is running. Now, if your state rep is Stephen Kinsey, this is the guy. He's Black, he's queer, he's in his early 30s. He is a Germantown native, and he's running for state rep. He wants to really shake things up in Harrisburg. I think he's great. I think he's a cool dude. I think, he's definitely, if I could vote in Germantown for somebody, I'd vote for him. Now, here's some tea that I've been hearing from the tea leaves. What would have been his opponent again, Stephen Kinsey, who's the current state rep? Stephen Kinsey is not running for re-election. Matter of fact, I'm hearing from close sources that this upcoming Friday, December 15th, which is Stephen Kinsey's birthday, I hear from close sources connected to Kinsey and in Germantown that he's actually going to announce that he's not running for re-election. And matter of fact, he might even be announcing that he's going to be resigning from office. Now, people are trying to ask, where is he going to go? Now, if you know the Northwest, there's a possibility that he might actually join Cheryl Parker's administration. I've heard that speculation. None of it was confirmed directly from the administration because, quite frankly, they're not telling us anything. But close camp, okay, Kinsey has not kept his mouth shut in these streets. I know for a fact he's not running for re-election. So if you don't know that, you don't know, he's not running for re-election. The reality of him potentially resigning early is a strong possibility. And I'm going to tell you why. He wants Patrick Jones. You might have heard this name before. This is a person who used to work for Cindy Bass. Cindy Bass, City Councilwoman Cindy Bass, and Patrick Jones do not see eye to eye. She don't care much for him, and I don't think he care much for her. He tried to run against her as her ex-staffer. That failed. He couldn't even make it on the ballot. He is really close to Stephen Kinsey. He worked for Kinsey for quite some time and then left earlier this year. And the person that ended up replacing him for the job was your fave trash man, Terrell Hagler. Did you know that? Fun fact. Let's keep it together. Apparently, Patrick Jones has interest in running for state rep. But people in the Northwest are saying, allegedly, that he doesn't live in the district. So for him to get the seat without having residency might be messy. I'm hearing that Stephen Kinsey dropped out the race because he really did not want the smoke of running against Andre Carroll, because Andre has really led a strong public-facing campaign. He announced his candidacy, but he's been really doing some strong fundraising, making a lot of public appearances. And for the whole year, there seemed to be a cat-mouse game between the two of them at public events in Germantown. And so at this point, it may have worn Kinsey out to the point where he realized, look, let me go ahead and get my pension. I mean, I think he's been a state rep for about 12 years. It's probably time. He was over the human resources committee chair for a while, and a lot of people were, getting behind him. But I've heard from sources that a lot of state reps, including Jordan Harris, because we name names on this show, he followed Andre Carroll on Instagram, and a couple other state reps over the past couple of days have been following him. Union conversations have been had across different parts of interest, because now it looks like the field is possibly open. But if Kinsey actually resigns, then that's going to trigger a special election. And if there's a special election, that special election will take place on March, even though Democratic primary and is going to be in April in Philly. So this special election, this quote unquote temporary person, will be picked by the party, and then they will have to run again a month later. The question is, who's going to fork over the $50,000 to the party? Because ain't no one getting a special election seat guaranteed nomination if they ain't going to cough up no cash. So who's going to get the cash to trigger a special election, if there would be one? We don't know. All this is currently speculative, but what I do know for about 100% fact is that Kinsey's not run for re-election. He has told this to elected officials. He has told this to people on the ground, but apparently the announcement is coming very soon. But you're going to hear it first here on Ernestly Speaking. So before any other publications try to act like they're breaking things, or what I call Christopher Columbusing, stay woke, people. That's what's happening. So we've arrived to this topic. The debate on anti-Semitism in America has been a situation that has really created divides, debate, and a lot of clashing. And now there has become consequences on various sides. And there has been a lot of interesting political actions that have taken place as well. I'm going to tell one story because you all want to know about GOP, and we're going to talk about GOP because that was the first thing that prompted a lot of debate. And then I'm going to see how that segues into another issue that has just happened at my dear old alma mater. So let's start with GOP. Last Sunday, which, as you all know, I was heated because I was like, damn, I just put out my podcast episode and then this happened. And I was like, oh, is this going to still be relevant? It worked out. So last Sunday, there was this big, the Israel-Hamas war has created protests from pro-Palestine activists to pro-Israel activists. Everybody's fighting. There's lots of debates. There's all kinds of issues. Now, to be clear, what we should not do, and I want to be very clear on this podcast, because I'm not about to play in these games. I don't support anti-Semitism, and I do not support Islamophobia. I think the hate is bullshit, right? And I want to be clear, though, that there's been a lot of conflation. People that are pro-Palestine are not automatically anti-Semitic. And we need to be clear about that. There's a lot of people that have called people out and have said certain things and said, oh, you support Hamas. That's Islamophobic. To assume that people who are pro-Palestine support Hamas is a conflation to actually deny them of a legitimate critique that they're having about the Israeli government's response in Gaza. And if you think that the Israeli government's response in Gaza is A-OK, wonderful, perfect, and divorces itself from critique, that is a very interesting observation. And so for me, I think there are a lot of things that we need to make sure we are all on the same page about, because there's been a lot of conflation and it's created a lot of dangerous targeting of innocent people. And there's also been a lot of issues that I think I've never seen before in relation to people's cultural issues. Like, this is a war that is happening abroad, and yet domestically in this country, it's now sparked a major concern around free speech and debate and discourse, even on college campuses. But we're going to get there. So GOP is a restaurant that's owned by Michael Solomonov, which I know very well. He owns the Hive, Laser Wolf, Kafar, a couple other restaurants. Lots of great restaurants, award-winning restaurants. The Hive is superior. Well, at GOP, at his restaurant, which was on a Sunday night, it was not open. There were a couple of, was a bunch of pro-Palestine protesters. Some of the people in that crowd, by the way, were Jewish. There are some Jewish people that are critical of this issue. And so we got to be mindful that a lot of times there are people saying, oh, these people are anti-Semitic. I'm just trying to figure out who do you think is in that crowd? Because when I looked at the groups and the people posting, a great number of the people that was in that crowd were Jewish. They were also, Black people. There were also Muslim people. It was a very diverse crowd. And so I'm kind of like, why are we, okay. So the group said outside of GOP, they said, GOP, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. And they've been accusing, certain businesses. Now, the first person to jump out and speak on this was Josh Shapiro, who's Jewish. Governor Josh Shapiro, he made the mention and said that there was a group, a mob, and called it active anti-Semitism, and they said that they targeted the restaurant because it was Jewish-owned, and that was the framing he put. Of course, on the internet and social media, people who was affiliated with it and others were like, where have you been, Shapiro? But that is not the way this works, Governor. Like, this is not what happened. But because the governor said something, there's a ripple effect. And the ripple effect becomes, once Governor Shapiro said this, then you saw state reps saying it. You saw Ben Waxman. Then you saw Congress people like Dwight Evans. And you saw, Mondesir Jones, and who's running for Congress in New York. Then Biden ended up weighing in, and President Biden. And so you see all of these different heads of state and government folks and people dogpiling on this, and everyone's saying the same thing, which is the same script. They all called it active of anti-Semitism. They all spoke out against it. It was interesting how they just went super laser focused on this issue. Now, that wasn't the story. That wasn't the full story. That wasn't the context. And as a journalist, what people have to understand is it's not my job to assuage your personal beliefs. It is my job to report the facts, even if the facts for me could be discomforting or disjointed or frustrating. It ain't my fault. It ain't my responsibility to provide you with bias, because that's not what journalists do. If you want that, go to some commentator on TV. It's my job to provide the context, because if we lack context, we lack understanding. If we lack understanding, we have chaos. And I think right now in this country, we're lacking a lot of understanding, and that's why we've seen a lot of chaos. So in this particular situation, context details matter. For starters, the restaurant was not targeted simply because it was Jewish owned. That restaurant is GOP. That restaurant was a part of a collective fundraiser that raised money. Now let me be clear. Solomon threw a fundraiser to raise money for this organization called Hezbollah, I believe it's called. And this organization is a nonprofit, and the reality is that they have had partnerships with the IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Forces. Now, there are people who feel like the IDF is, these are the soldiers who are dropping bombs. And, there's been reports at Reuters of, journalists that have been killed, that were identified journalists that were covering the war, but Israeli army troops had killed them. And there's questions being asked about how aggressive that the Israeli military force has been, that innocent people, children, have been killed in all of this bloodshed and bombing. And so there are some concerns. These are concerns. There are concerns about the humanitarian efforts that are happening. Like, okay, are you upset with Hamas? Are you fighting Hamas? But the way in which there's been a lot of innocent children killed in the pursuit of going after Hamas is the way in which the Israeli government is responding to this justifiable. There are many people who legitimately feel like the way that the Israeli government has been responding in Gaza has been at a level that has been very aggressive. Some people say it's not genocide. Some people consider it genocide because they feel like this demographic of people are trapped in this area. And as long as the bomb shed continues to happen at the rate it is, an entire race of people are going to be completely killed. That is what is being said. Okay? And so that's how they're feeling. Some people are debating what's not genocide, but it is massive bloodshed. However you wanted to say it, people are dying in mass. We cannot disenchant that. Now, what happened in October, right, that sparked this, that what Hamas did was disgusting, was horrific, was violent, and very tragic. But some people are feeling like there is an oversized response by Israel that has recklessly injured innocent people when it was not necessary. There have been journalists that have identified themselves as journalists that were killed. I mean, look at Reuters, read Reuters about what happened with their own staffers out there who were killed by the Israeli military based on this issue. Now, here's what happened with this fundraiser. So Michael Solomonov back in October held a huge fundraiser. Actually, it was on October 12th, which was my actual birthday. He threw this fundraiser to support Friends of United Hetzlah, which is a nonprofit emergency medical service that is partnering with the Israeli Defense Forces. Now, they have been taking down, I've saw this because I kept screenshots. The Friends of United Hetzlah has been, this United Hetzlah group has been criticized for partnering with IDF, and they've been taking down videos and in social media that shows this connection. They've been hiding a lot of this information because the thing is that the narrative was that the money was going to support people who were injured during the war. But the reality is that it also, there is a partnership with IDF. And the fundraiser that Michael Solomonov held raised more than $100,000 in one day at Godi, Zahav, Laser Wolf, and Kafar Cafe, which is in Rittenhouse. This has sparked people feeling like he's supporting military action. That was the perspective. To be clear, United Hetzlah has worked almost in many ways as Israel's paramedic and Red Cross service. They operate in Israel, but they also are in other countries and cities, right? They've also worked with medical agencies, emergencies, regardless of citizenship. They've worked with Palestinians. They've operated in both Israel and the West Bank, and they've also partnered with the Red Crescent, which operates as Israeli Arab chapters in predominantly Arab towns. So they are interesting. They're an interesting entity. But given the political nature of everything, their partnership with the IDF is what's been sparking the controversy. And there have been employees that has worked at Godi and some of the other restaurants under the Cook and Solomon brand that have raised concerns about this. And they have said to the press on record that they felt a sense of intimidation. They couldn't wear their pro-Palestine pins. Some of them said that they felt like they were forced out the company or fired because of their pro-Israel politics. Michael Solomonov is Israeli born. He is Jewish. He is more than just a cook as well. People, not a cook, but a chef. He's more than just a chef. This man was appointed by the Ministry of Israel from their hospitality branch to be their culinary ambassador. And that has sparked controversy over the years because there's been a conversation about Israeli cuisine. And people have said that they feel like Israeli cuisine itself is stolen from, it's culturally appropriated Palestinian cuisine, and that this is cultural appropriation, and that people like Salmanov, who's in this role, is basically furthering erasing Palestinian culture and history by basically claiming these recipes to be Israeli. That is things and discussions that's been in the food community long before what happened in October, that act of terrorism by Hamas in Israel. These concerns around food culture have been in the conversation. And so there's a lot of history behind and context that's missing. So this individual group who led this protest was the Philadelphia Free Palestine Coalition. They have been criticizing the America's complicity. This is their perceived complicity with Israel. They're asking for a complete end to the siege on Gaza. They're calling for a ceasefire. They're calling for all of these types of things. And they're a very diverse group. Some of them are Jewish. Some of them are Muslim. Some of them are Christian. Some of them are black. Some of them are white. It's a very diverse group of people here. And that's important to note. And so they've made it clear that they did not specifically target GOP because it was Jewish owned, but because they felt like that given Michael Solomonov's investment in using GOP as a, again, proxy to raise money for an institution that was collaborating, partnering with the IDF, they felt like the restaurant should be boycotted, and they also protested. And to be clear, they didn't target GOP only. What they did was they did a whole citywide protest, and that was one of the stops they made. They didn't. They vandalized the property with pro-Palestine stickers and said this is genocide on the property. Now, to me, people have said that it would have been considered anti-Semitic, and this is some people's opinion. It would have been considered anti-Semitic if they would have targeted the restaurant without that context. Like basically, you're charging a Jewish restaurant, a Jewish-owned restaurant, with all of this focus on what's happening over in the Middle East, and that's unfair targeting, right? Oh, you're blaming them for a war when they have no government relations. But taking into account that this restaurant, this particular restaurant, GOP, and the others under Salmanov and Cook, that they had a direct relationship, that the owner of the restaurant had a direct relationship with the Israeli government and an influence connected with the money being raised, the six figures that was raised, according to Salmanov's and Cook and Solo social media, that went to that institution to collaborate, that led to a more specific, intentional, deliberate boycott and protest. Unfortunately, Josh Shapiro doesn't want to hear it. Because he's a politician, right? He's not a journalist. And I want to be able to tell people that we need to be very careful with having, and this is the problem where we're at, is that we have what I call, in the communications theory, it's called confirmation bias, where your beliefs, you're divorcing yourself from facts and details because they do not suit your personal bias. That is an academic term, confirmation bias. Look it up. But it is something that has happened in media and we see in society where you will literally divorce yourself from any type of internalized communications, any focus, any thoughts on a detail or issue because it is aligned with your personal beliefs. So what's interesting about Josh Shapiro, the governor, is that he has continued to not really review the shaping of how this story has evolved, which, let me be clear, the shaping of the story evolved is that I wrote my story that people have said has been the most sterile account of breaking down all of these issues first. Then following my reporting, the Philadelphia Inquirer came through and did a follow-up based on really some of the details I described, which included 2 employees that left. This conflict got to the point where even Solomonov apologized to staffers on how they were silent about some of the concerns and issues. And they thought that by being silent, that was a way to help ease tensions, but they realized it could have had the opposite effect. They apologized to their staff. And again, Josh Shapiro is not talking about that because Josh Shapiro is a politician. And so politicians, people, sadly, should not be our vessel of direct information. You should never let a politician narrate or tell you any story of any incident because oftentimes they're going to pick the things that align with their beliefs to support their own political bias. That's just, we've seen this happen. We saw this happen with what happened in Charleston, right? When Trump said only there was a few people on both sides. The way that Trump contextualized what happened And y'all know that, Charleston, right? When that white woman got killed by those neo-Nazis, by those white supremacists, right? Like, we know what happened. When Trump equivocated that, journalists had to take a moment and say, that's not how that went down. You're not going to frame this like this. That's reckless and that's dangerous. As a journalist, regardless of my own personal political beliefs on the issue, Josh Shapiro's interpretation of that incident was misleading. It was misleading. It was intellectually dishonest, and it also did not help the situation. It actually triggered even more, I believe, division between folks that felt like they were being falsely accused of being anti-Semitic. He painted a broad stroke over a group of people who had a nuanced perspective. And in politics, people purposely lose an interest in nuance because of the fact that nuance does not sell in politics. Ambiguity does not succeed in politics. People do not like ambiguity or nuance because in politics, things are black and white, red and blue. They hate purple. That works in politics, but in society, we cannot live like that. And when I see politicians capitalize off of division in this way, whether for the right reasons or the arguable wrong reasons, that should concern us as a people. Because it's becoming fascist, to be honest. This culture we're in politically, whether it's Democratic or Republican, where you get to a point where you're seeing people purposely neglect details that don't suit the narratives that they want to champion and campaign on. When we start to be in a position where people, elected officials, are like, I don't care about the statements, I said what I said, and they're giving that kind of energy, we're in trouble. We know what that was like for 4 years of Trump. I don't like seeing it happen on the other side. The right has done it. Now I'm seeing the left do it. And now the left is acting like the right when it comes to these issues. This is going to bite the Democrats in the ass. Because as much as you may not like the methods or the route of how some people exercise their free speech, what you should not do is reduce, minimize, and mislead the public into fear. Because that's fear-mongering. And politicians love fear-mongering to justify their existence to have more power. This is important. And no one should sleep on and sneeze on these details because this is becoming a problem that's going to impact civil liberties. And that's that. Which brings me to what has happened over the past weekend. A lot of people in the University of Pennsylvania is shook, confused, concerned about the resignation of Liz Miguel, who is the president of the University of Pennsylvania. She has now officially resigned. She's going to still stay in the role until there's an interim or until there's a new hire. She will remain as I believe the permanent. She will be she's going to keep power as a tenured law professor at the Penn Carey Law School. I'm not used to calling it Penn Carey, but that law school at Penn, she's going to be a tenured law professor there. But she had to resign. Public pressure, donor pressure caused it. Now, let me back up a little bit. A lot of this has to do with her response during a congressional hearing on anti-Semitism. It was the president of MIT, the first black woman to be president of Harvard was there, and also, of course, Liz Miguel from Penn. They had to do they were invited to a hearing on anti-Semitism, congressional hearing, and this was led by Republicans and others, Democrats as well. But Elise Stefanik, who is a Republican in New York, she's a congresswoman. She's extremely conservative. She's problematic on so many other issues. Do your research on her. She's no friend. But she did a hearing addressing anti-Semitism. And there has been narratives that there's been extreme rates of anti-Semitism on elite campus, Ivy League campuses. Penn is one of them. Liz Miguel has been having a problem for a long time around these issues on free expression and things, right? There was a Palestine Writers Conference that students felt like some of the speakers or people there were anti-Semitic and they were invited. They wanted to shut it down. Liz pretty much said, look, this is expression, this is cultural expression. Like, they have a right to have it. There was conflict around that, and that happened back in the early fall. There's been issues and reports of student protesters protesting Israel, and people felt like the chants and the rhetoric were anti-Semitic. There was a lot of speculation about who said what, and this is one of the things that annoy me about protest and people who don't like, is that there's people that will just lie or over embellish details to try to cancel something, and without providing proof, but just doing the I heard this or this, that, and the third without providing real substantial proof, or calling out one bad apple in a group and then trying to frame it as something else. And so that there's been those types of incidents that have taken place. There's been a lot. And people have felt like that, the president, Liz McGill, has consistently had to go back, apologize, acquiesce, and again. Everything came to a finding screeching head at this congressional hearing that was basically, I think performative. I think that this Republican who did the questioning was basically trying to set up a dynamic to really aid far-right beliefs. The question that was asked specifically was that if students on Penn's campus, or any of these campuses, because she wasn't the only one interviewed, but basically was calling for the genocide of Israel or for Jews or Jewish people, whatnot, would there be a disciplinary action? And Liz, in a lawyer mindset, said it depends on the context. And people thought that response was very cold, was very like, what the fuck? Very like, oh my goodness, how tone deaf, and was very cruel. I'm going to, again, what Liz was doing was her approach, and she even talked about her approach, was that she was really trying to specify, and because she was trying to answer the question directly, she is on a congressional hearing, that the way that Penn's free speech policy works is that and this is a lot of policies around free speech works, to be honest, is that it's rooted in this concept that that you can express different views that could be, an opinion or sorts, or accusation of sorts, or whatever the case is. But as long as, if that speech does not lead to direct harm, physical harm, I suppose is how they define it, then they do not censor it. So in many ways, you can't get expelled off a campus or face any criminal charges. And this is what I say about free speech in America. We've talked about this before. You don't get to have any immediate penalty. Like, even with, for example, there's people that say things like, oh, I don't like homosexuals, they should burn in hell. There are people who have those beliefs. The Westboro Baptist Church, for example. One could argue that it's calling for the genocide of LGBTQI people, right? In this country with free speech, that's permitted as long as people do not immediately create a harm. Now, that's the legal thing. If you don't agree with that, like, listen, just, this is what civil liberties look like. They're allowed to say those things, but there is no further consequence beyond that. Now, this is for this is campus culture, right? Now, if you're an employee and you're in at-will state and you say something like that, if you're at a private institution, yes, but public institutions around free speech, it's a different kind of conversation. And so I think what Liz was trying to be mindful is that, okay, if I say this, could this change the precedent on how people challenge other students on other issues? She should have been more clear that the university does not support, they do not personally endorse those ideals, and that is wrong, but the measures to disciplinary action depends very differently. She should have provided an understanding that the university does not endorse those issues while protecting. Like, in this country, people are allowed to say the N-word without government arrest. That's how free speech works. Does that mean that the United States endorses the use of the N-word? No, but it means that the country will not arrest a person, because a lot of people go to jail based on how we interpreted our ideals around various issues. That was the line that was not clear. I understand what she was saying. Did I like the way that I would have not said it that way. But I think that, again, when you're having a congressional hearing and you're talking to a conservative that you know is invested in really being manipulative, the whole point was to politicize it in a way to put Democrats there. These Republicans are attacking liberal institutions and really, arguably, people that they believe support Democratic interests. Like, let's understand why the University of Pennsylvania is being targeted, right? It's being targeted because Joe Biden has a building named after him. Joe Biden, like, Penn is one of Joe Biden's hubs, okay? Academic hubs, right? Like, there's a reason why Penn is being targeted, because of the relationship it has with Biden, okay? Because they for the most part, don't fuck with Trump, which is why Trump don't care about Penn anymore, to be honest. There's a reason why. There's a connection here. And so if we're ignoring the other subcontext behind this stuff, right? That the subcontext is, okay, you have the incident with, okay, the situation between Biden and, Republicans coming after Ivy League institutions and liberal arts colleges. These conversations, they've been wanting for a long time to censor critical race theory. They lost the war on some of that. They wanted to come against diversity and equity programming, right? But there was pushback there, right? So then the new way to try to target these institutions is to frame them with being anti-Semitic on a higher level, because that's an issue, a bipartisan issue, right? Anti-Semitism is a bipartisan issue, as it should. Unfortunately, interesting enough, combating racism is not a bipartisan issue for Republicans and Democrats. Democrats, speak against the racist institutions, right? But we've noticed that there is a uniform, a collective. So this is a way to get buy-in from Democrats. And Josh Shapiro, who's a moderate, is falling for that trap of they're all supporting the issue without recognizing how the ways in which this crisis is being manipulated for political interest from conservatives. And the fact that there are some Democrats that are feeding into that and not recognizing how this is being shifted. We got to ask the question, was that hearing intentionally trying to actually address an issue, or was it an attempt to politicize something? Because it worked. As a result of the hearing and the backlash that Liz McGill faced, that controversy led to a donor, a wealthy donor from Penn, dropping $100 million. This follows other wealthy donors pulling out of donating to the university, which put pressure on the board and also Liz that people felt like, you know what, she needs to resign. She did resign. And also the board chairman, Steve Bach, who was a chairman for over 10 years, also resigned. Here's the issue, because this is a real one. What we're recognizing is something that I already knew, that the donor class of these universities dictate the university. How does institutions of higher learning be dictated by the donors if the faculty do not have control, if the students do not have an ability to express themselves in a way? It's concerning, and we're setting ourselves up for dangerous precedents. Okay, we could agree we don't like anti-Semitism. And that's true. Like, I don't like it. Clearly, I'm against it. I do. And also, for people who don't know, I condemn the actions of Hamas. And I am not, I don't live in the Middle East, but I'll say it. I condemn Hamas. Just in case people think I don't. I think I feel like the hostages need to be released, clearly. And I believe that everybody in this situation there needs to be a serious consideration of protecting innocent lives. Like, if that makes me, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the fuck, like, I don't know. Like, is that a problem? That I want people to stop dying and being killed? That I want hostages to be released? That I want innocent children who did not ask for any of this bombing? That I want military forces to stop fucking targeting and bombing hospitals and innocent people and killing journalists doing their job, if that's considered, a political statement, if that's considered, something, I don't know what you want. But calling for people on both sides of this issue to come to peace should not be considered anything else. And also, the reality is that in academic higher places of learning, exploring concerns and crises in academic research and conversations about violence and harm is not being tolerant of anti-Semitism. There needs to be some clear distinctions on what exactly, not hypotheticals, but actual understanding of like where we draw this line. Because if donors get to define and get to narrate basically what's happening out here, we're in some serious trouble. Because what if donors don't want to see more Black Lives Matter protests? And the donors say, oh, you're supporting, BLM and diversity, we want to pull out. Then, is that the culture we want to be in? But here's why all of this is connected to my book. When I wrote The Case for Council Culture, I knew this day would come, and it came. That all these conservatives and people that would say, Ernest, you can't cancel everything. We got to consider free speech. We can't do censorship. Oh, contrary, my friend. The Case for Council Culture spoke on this, that at the end of the day, if people had the agency to decide what they want to cancel based on things that threaten their way of life, this was that moment. And all of these white conservatives and all of this a lot of people, I remember, and I said this, I remember I told y'all a couple of months ago, there was a white Jewish man who I was in debate with about cancel culture. And I said, listen, if I'm not speaking only about racism, I'm speaking about anti-Semitism and everything else. And this man said, well, if someone had a different belief than me, people should have different beliefs and express them, but we shouldn't censor. Well, how do you feel about this? Because now we're seeing people literally get censored for having positions and ideas. We're seeing people lose their jobs and get fired and be canceled. Now, I said, this is what it is, y'all, and cancel culture is what it is. It's a form of democratic expression. Some of y'all said, no, we shouldn't censor. But that was because of white supremacy. See, it was okay to have intellectual conversations about neo-Nazis and white supremacists when it came to black people, black and brown people. But now we're seeing this double standard of, no, there's no place for hate when it comes for anti-Semitism, which it should be. But where was this energy for racism to black and brown people? Where is that energy for Islamophobia that's been happening forever in this country? It's very clear. Here's what we know. There has been ongoing white supremacy and racism at the University of Pennsylvania since its inception. There has been numerous reports of students experiencing racism and discrimination in all elements institutionally. Where was the hearings for white supremacy on college campuses? Where were the hearings about that? All I'm saying is that in my book, I wrote a chapter that said not all cancellations are the same. This situation confirms that. This situation fully confirms what I have been saying for years. Not all cancellations are the same. And that is because of race, money, power, and connections. The proximity to power is that in this situation, Republicans prioritize issues of anti-Semitism above other acts of hate, which is why there was a bipartisan effort to address this issue. And I'm not saying whether they were wrong or right. I'm concerned about the precedent, but I'm not here to decide what was wrong or right about that decision. What I'm saying is that it is because there was a more concerted effort and concern over anti-Semitism in this country compared to acts of racism, Islam, even sexism, right? Or even homophobia. We've never seen this much institutional collaboration to combat this at this level. I've never seen that. Just saying. Just saying. So now that the door has been opened, I said this on social that Amy Wax, right, this law professor who has made racist remarks and statements, Amy Wax, who's this law professor, is very conservative. She's made racist remarks. She has invited individual that people consider to be white supremacist to her campus, to Penn to speak at guest lectures. I've never seen donors en masse publicly say that we're going to pull out money for having Liz Wax, who's a tenured professor, there. Now, folks have said, well, Liz is not being fired. She's stepping down and resigning from Penn as president, but she's going to still be there as a tenured law professor. Do y'all listen? She faced a level of a reprimand. Amy Wax has not faced any serious, severe reprimands for her conduct and behavior, which is abhorrent. Why? Because Amy Wax's remarks are more fixated on disrespecting her black students and black and brown people than it is calling or saying anything critical about Jewish students. And that, to me, is what is only fueled people's beliefs of double standards. Where was this interest in Penn in this way? These Ivy League institutions have had slaves. They've enslaved people. They have had histories with fossil fuel companies that's fucking up the environment. There are so many problematic aspects of institutions like Penn, Harvard, MIT, and others, right, that never have warranted the public's strong condemnation. And I'm not saying that Jewish students on campus should not feel safe. They should absolutely feel safe. And I'm saying that the rigor that they got, we do not see this energy given to other groups, because we are in a situation where we see consistent politicizing from elected officials. I don't blame students. I don't blame respective communities. I don't blame the Jewish community. I don't blame anyone in that regard. I am blaming leaders of political influence for continuing to try to pit communities against each other, weaponize the hate that happens to people, and decide on the litmus test who should be cared for and who should fucking not. And that is our politicians, right? I knew that when Josh Shapiro showed up to Penn for Hanukkah and also visited the campus for other reasons, that his consistent visiting of the campus and his criticism of Liz was going to be a dog whistle for other people to join in. So in this issue, the Democrats are aligning themselves with conservatives and Republicans to literally go after liberal-leaning colleges on issues pertaining to free speech. This should be a wake-up call. That's all I'm saying. It should be a wake-up call. Stay woke. Stay woke. So, moving along, I just want to say that since we're talking about crisis, humanitarian crises, there has been an increased reporting about what's going on in the Congo. And this is pertaining to, in the Congo, this is pertaining to a lot of migrant workers, young, underage, African, young, black children who are in mines taking pieces and elements to actually support cell phones being made. And that this has become massively exploitative. There are videos showing thousands upon thousands of young kids going in and mining, trying to get ingredients and make a living, which are being exploited to create the minerals that are being used for our cell phones. Ladies and gentlemen, please stop buying cell phones every year. Seriously. Like, I know that if you all have followed me over the years, y'all know that I always keep a cell phone, the same cell phone, for about 3 or 4 years, if not longer. There's a reason. And part of the reason is because of the fact that the exploitation, right? These iPhones that everybody want to get a new iPhone every year, we got to stop. We as a society need to stop. Stop buying a cell phone every year. Number one, you don't need it. It's wasteful. You're fueling this gross economy. We know how these parts are being made, and blood is on your hands. So I am calling for all of my followers and listeners to stop buying cell phones every year. If you get a new iPhone for Christmas, keep this motherfucking phone for the next 4 years. I please urge of you, please. Like, there are lives being impacted by this gross situation. If you are not familiar with this issue, please go Google Congo and cell phones. I promise you, there's some really good reporting that's out there internationally that talks about this current crisis, and I just need people to just really do that. Cancel multiple cell phones a year, since we're talking about cancel culture, okay? Do that for me. Thanks. The Jonathan Majors trial, y'all, this has been a hot topic Um, Jonathan Majors is finally on trial, and it's not looking good for him. I mean, there's so many new developments coming out, things about how he wanted his white girlfriend at the time to really be like his Michelle Obama or Coretta Scott King, which people have read as really awkward and weird. I agree. I don't really understand why he's even conflating these women, but whatever. There's been that being said. There has also been revelations that there seems to be some reference of prior abuse, allegedly. But Jonathan Majors isn't looking too good. And Megan Good standing by him right now don't look too good either. But here we are, right? Goodness. I'm keeping an eye on that trial, just letting y'all know. Diddy, y'all, I wrote a piece about Diddy, and honestly, the hits keep coming. The hits keep coming, and I don't even know what to say anymore. He is in a major trial. There's been more accusations about him allegedly gang raping a woman. There's been other people to corroborate Cassie's account. And all I'm saying is that Brother Love is just no longer the guy that we all thought he was. People said they always knew Diddy, but as a millennial, I want to make it clear that for y'all older Gen Xers that knew Puff Daddy, we didn't know Puff Daddy. We knew Diddy, we knew Brother Love, we knew this man who was trying to perform as being a good father, a loving father, that there's nuance in that clearly, and we're seeing that now. So, it's just a shame. He let go of Revolt, he let go of his private school. It just seems like when it rains, it continues to pour for him. So, it is what it is. I want to take a moment to talk about this Beyonce situation. First of all, I've been hearing from all of you all that apparently I'm in the new Beyonce movie Renaissance. Okay, multiple people have told me this at this point. I was like, are y'all just assuming me with another black gay man? No, actually, I'm hearing consistently I'm in it. Now, when this comes out, I'm going to watch it screen by screen, line by line to decide whether I want to chop it and put it in and make it happen. But apparently I'm in it, so we'll see. But there's been conversations about Beyonce and people critiquing her, like, because she, put the film in Israel. She hasn't spoken out on these issues, and people feel like, there's problems. There was a big piece that was written in, I believe, Vulture, by a black woman critic who wrote about her. And honestly, this is my thing. I read a column by Karen Atia for the Washington Post. Here's my thing. And this is where I'm in with it. And y'all can go argue with your dog. I think that Beyonce is such a mega superstar that she's at a point in her career where she does not have to perform at the same. I mean, she's a capitalist. Okay, she's a billionaire. She makes a lot of money. At this point, I just wish that we as a society would celebrate actual activists, community organizers, and people that do that work for real, and stop trying to project these ideals onto celebrities. Beyonce, I think the reason why she gets a lot of scrutiny is because Beyonce has definitely dipped her finger into a lot of activist culture, conversations, and positioning. And as a result, she has gotten a lot of celebrities who worship her and obsess over her, a lot of fans, to believe that she's going to stand on all of these issues. The truth of the matter is, there's no way in defending Beyonce from the fact that at the end of the day, people are like, what about Taylor Swift? What about Madonna? What about this person? The reality is that Beyonce's whole brand in the last, I want to say, 10 years have really ramped up on these messages about pro-blackness and liberation and queerness and all these things. And so there has become an expectation that what she says in her music is what she should say publicly. And we saw this with Janet, right? Janet spoke about AIDS and HIV advocacy. Madonna did the same, right? When they were at their careers with the things they stood on. That it wasn't just an aesthetic for them, but it was actually a way of life. And so people were expecting Beyonce to do that. And I definitely think that I could see why that expectation was there based on how she framed it. But I just need us as a society to understand that celebrities, no matter how much they cosplay into activism, it is a performance. And that sadly, there are some that really do give a fuck and stand on business about it. But a lot of these mega rich people, like the Beyoncés of the world, for them, it's just never going to be that. They're going to be for something, everything, but nothing at all at the same time, which is a little disappointing. So I just want people to really kind of hold a balance of recognizing that, like for me, Beyonce's an entertainer. I find her to be entertaining. She's really talented. But that's a limitation to what she's giving. She's not going to give me a real call to action. She's not going to inspire me to be woke in that way. I think that I find it from reading great books and actually following real leaders that are trying to stand on that kind of business. That's just my opinion. I mean, I think we need to stop trying to make these people more. Let it go. Celebrity obsession and culture can be so fucking annoying, in my opinion, because we do put too much weight on celebrities, expecting them to be all these things for us. Okay, you like their music, but stop trying to make them be something they're not. And listen, if you can't come to terms with that, then just stop supporting them. But I just feel like we need to also be realistic, because at the end of the day, Taylor Swift don't stand for much either politically a lot, and she's doing well, but that's because that's what it is, and we can still listen to her without knowing what her opinions are. But that being said, be mindful about how you dip your toe in these type of issues, because that's when the expectations get real. So that's my take on that. As far as this week's Ask Ernest, someone said, asked me, so this is interesting because this is very interesting. So this is a black man of color, queer man of color, who has a partner they've been with, and they're both black, they're both queer, and they said this is my Ask Ernest. And it's funny because I just heard this conversation somewhere else, but I'm not going to get into those details. They said, "Hey Ernest, what's up? Hope you're doing well in these crazy ass times. Keep doing your thing, and I really, really, really loved your article this week at Eater. Thank you." Okay, this is what they said. "Lately, me and my partner have been engaged for a year, and we oftentimes share and enjoy that. Marriage was something that we didn't intend to do, but recently realized that there's other benefits to marriage, such as health care, child care, X, Y, and Z." Okay, that's legit. However, recently I noticed that they do not wear their ring everywhere like I do, and it's starting to make me feel some type of way. I trust them and know that they're not going to do anything. However, they consistently bring up the fact that people try to hit on them, and I kind of wonder if they still like the attention of what it felt like when they were single, even though I know they very much so love me. What should I do? That's a great question. Here's my take on it. Honestly, I mean, well, for starters, my ring never comes off. But, listen, to each their own. What I would say is, before making these projections, these assumptions about whether they want to be single or like the attention, have the conversation if you haven't already. Figure out what's driving the ring coming off or why it's not coming on or whatever the case is. And really have a conversation about maybe some of your own discomfort around it. I'm not saying you gotta be possessive, but it is a fair conversation, right? And I think it does warrant some introspection. So I would say, with a little bit of a grain of salt, lean into that conversation, recognizing that a lot of this is coming from you versus them per se. You still deserve your answer, but just don't feel like it's an interrogation. Don't make it an interrogation, and see where it goes. But give me a follow-up on that. That's really interesting. So as far as movies go, I'm really into this film on Netflix called May December, which is starring Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman. It's on Netflix. I highly encourage all of y'all to watch it. We got to talk about this film. First of all, it is so good. Todd Haynes, who's directed some other great films like Far From Heaven, which also starred Julianne Moore, was incredible. I heard they did an interview, Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman, who I love, and they both wish they got Oscars for different roles. So Julianne Moore got an Oscar for Still Alice, where she played a woman impacted by Alzheimer's. And of course, Natalie Portman won her Oscar for Black Swan, which was, oh my God, a great horror story, psychological thriller mixed with great drama, incredible performances. So anyway, so Julianne Moore said she wished she got it for the film Far From Heaven, which was very radical when it came out in the early 2000s. I highly recommend you all watch that. And then also the film, Natalie Portman said she wished she would have got her Oscar for Jackie, playing Jackie Kennedy. Also another interesting film choice. To be honest, I like Julianne Moore. I can see Far From Heaven.
But I think Natalie Portman is at her best in Black Swan. But Jackie was good too. I also liked her in Closer, which was another Oscar-nominated film. I digress. This film is about grooming. A very powerful movie about grooming that I thought was very compelling and interesting. It talks about grooming. It talks about Hollywood. It talks about aging in the industry. It's just a very interesting film. And I don't want to give it away, but I highly recommend it. The Color Purple buzz continues to keep going. You know, this week the Golden Globe nominations are finally coming. Do I have predictions? I'm curious to see. It's really early right now. The Oscar films are coming, but it's still not enough to me confirmation of whether the films are going in the. I don't know. I would say that Oppenheimer. We're gonna see nominations for The Color Purple, Oppenheimer for sure, Killers of the Flower Moon, the Maestro, that Bradley Cooper film that no one's seen yet that's coming on Netflix soon. Those are the standouts to me thus far. I think those are going to be some major ones that are going to get a lot of nominations for sure. But we'll see. As far as new music goes, Nicki has a new album out, Pink Friday. I'm just going to say this about it, about that album. Look, Nicki's personal life is in shambles, but this album cohesively was a lot better than Queen. I'll give it that. There are a lot of samples. She is the sampling queen. She samples all types of songs and beats. I mean, I'm not really gonna listen to the album a bunch because I've kind of grown out of Nicki. There are some bangers. There's a couple of bangers for sure. I'm not gonna take that away. But I just feel like, she just turned 41. I feel like musically, I don't feel like she's taking any more creative risks. I feel like we haven't really seen much creative risk from her since the Pink Print, which was like almost 10 years ago. I have not seen any real evolution really since then. I just feel like we're just getting the same her, but just a little bit more focused. And I guess maybe that's what the fans want, is a stable artist, I suppose. But it's breaking records. It's apparently broke the Spotify record for the largest Spotify debut for a female hip-hop artist. She surpasses Cardi B in that regard. But we'll see what happens with Cardi's sophomore debut, whenever that comes. But Nicki is, she's back on top. I did predict it will be number one, I believe. I think it's going to be number one. I could be wrong, but I think it could be number one, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But the interesting release, she had a bunch of older tracks on there, which already made the album go automatically gold, because streaming, if you put a song that's already a hit on an album, then it helps project with the estimate sales. So she's got songs like Red Ruby the Sleeves on there. She's got Super Freaky Girl. She got a lot of songs that's already been re-released or already out, and she's putting them on the album. So she's playing up the numbers a little bit. She's juicing it up a little bit, in my opinion. But we'll see the rest of the rollout. Taylor Swift is Times Person of the Year. I'm a little shocked, I must say. I get that she's popping. I do feel like it's a little overdone. I wouldn't have not put her in Person of the Year, personally. Honestly, I feel like AI should have been Times Person of the Year. I think the AI creation has been the real interesting global shakeup that I think warrants a conversation. I really feel like that is who I would have made Times Person of the Year or Machine of the Year or whatever, because I think the role of AI has really played an interesting role in our entire livelihood as a society. That's who I would have made it personally. But I get Taylor Swift. It's very seldom that we see a musician of artist or whatever, artist like a musician or anyone do that. It's been a while since that's happened. So I see the poignancy. She has been everywhere. She's been all over the news. Her impact is huge. But I don't know. Entertainer of the Year, sure. But Person of the Year, And then, as far as TV goes, y'all, I'm a little bit, I don't know how I feel about Zeus. Zeus has crossed the line for me. There was this show, I guess, called Baddies Battles. There was a Zeus event that I guess was going to be recorded, and it was supposed to be a battle between Team Light Skin versus Team Dark Skin. Oh, we don't do colorism over here. I kind of not feeling that. I heard about that. I said, oh, we out here doing competitions around colorism? Yeah, not a fan. Not here for it. I'm concerned. They've been trying to take it off, but apparently Nick Cannon was hosting this, or one of the people Nick Cannon presents. And I was just like, not them pitting the women based on color tones and thinking this shit is cute and people should support it. So that really has turned me off from Zeus. I mean, I don't know. We're going to see. But I was not here for that, because there's certain, like, what makes these women different besides their skin tone? And why is that a thing that we're playing into? Colorism in 2023? What the fuck? Nah, not for me. But as we gear up this week, I'm looking forward to all the holiday parties. You know, I got holiday parties all week long. Y'all gonna see me on this journey. I'm gearing up for Houston. So next week's episode will be recorded in Houston, Texas. Okay, well, Katie. But, you know, we're in the suburbs. It's going to be recorded in Houston. So I'm going to be in Houston for 2 weeks, from the 16th to the 30th, before I get back here in Philly. But it's going to be 2 weeks of vacation. But I'm looking forward to this marathon out of sprint of holiday parties I got to get to before I exit out to Texas. Of course, myself and Mr. Johnson going to be with the family. So it's going to be a really cute holiday thing. I did all of my Christmas shopping. I can't tell y'all what I got yet, because the fam be listening. But I got everybody Christmas gifts. And I just want to say I deserve to be Big Brother of the Year for the gifts I got from my little brothers. I just want to put that out there. But I'm looking forward to what happens this week and how Penn's going to react to all this drama, what's going to be going down in this city with the politics, and what's going to happen to some of these seats. But as always, be well and be best.
Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.